Thank you, everyone, for being here. And thank you, Kelly and Raj, for joining me on stage as well. We're going to have a fireside chat. And we had this whole joke prepared about there being no fire, but Matt already did it. So thank you, Matt. So you guys can laugh. That was the icebreaker here. But we're here to talk about zero trust. As we all know, it's a term that's widely used. I'm sure most of the organizations represented here are on a zero trust journey. We see it every day. As Deloitte, most of our clients are on that path as well, some ahead of others. There is a lot of buzz around it and hype, and some say, there is some debate on what it exactly is. It's a pretty broad term. So here to unpack it a little bit through this conversation, Kelly and Raj, thank you for joining me again. We had 15 minutes. I think we still have 15 minutes, so we'll get right into it. And let me start with you then, Kelly.
Okay.
You've been part of this journey with different organizations. You've seen it from different perspectives. Help us understand, what is zero trust to you? What should an organization think when they're thinking zero trust?
That is an amazing question. I would first say, assume breach. Trust no one, verify often. Mm-hmm. There are many things that make up the framework. Right. To follow the journey and work through the framework, follow a risk-based approach. So the decisions need to be from a risk decision perspective. And the main part should be identity. You should start with identity. But there's network, there's application, there's data, there's all kinds of things that make up the framework and help you on your journey. But I would say at the core of that is identity.
Right. And it's that mentality of assume breach, right?
Correct.
Trust no one, you're starting verifying, there are no standing privileges.
Correct.
That's kind of what's making it up. So Raj, we're here at Navigate, everybody here is in some way associated with the identity side of things, right? There are other aspects, but if you can help us understand, like from an identity perspective, right, what are some of what is the role of identity in that zero trust framework, if you can make it more real for the audience here?
So identity is the front and center for any zero trust implementation. And I'm talking without any bias, even though I've just been practicing IAM for the past 20 years, right? The reason being is it establishes a foundation that enables you to be dynamic. Right, in terms of how you evaluate the connection information from a context perspective and then access against the risk-based policies and whatnot. So it's about how do you enable being static, role-based, entitlement-based access to a more dynamic runtime access decisions that encompasses of the whole of the context, not just the user as well. So identity plays a major role. Not only that, I know Kelly talked about the various domains within zero trust, which is data, you talk about applications and whatnot. Identity basically integrates each one of these layers. And as you can see, more and more domains are actually identity-centric. If you talk about network, right, you talk about software-defined perimeters and whatnot, they are more identity-centric in such a way that there is not segmentation. There is nothing called as network perimeter, right? It's all identity perimeter. So I almost would say identity is a new perimeter.
Right. It's really, if you're assuming the breach, as you said, starting with identity, you really have to understand who the person is to start to give that entitlement or access or allow them in or outside the network. So in that context, diving a little bit deeper, right? IGA has a role to play, identity, just the quality of identity or identity hygiene. What are some of the specific considerations or aspects of identity you think that are relevant here?
So if I want to break it down at the very basic foundational level, it's a subject trying to access the object. Object being an application, a resource, a system of organizations or whatnot be, right? So from a subject context, identity is always looked at as a user perspective. What does a user have from an entitlement or role? The user attributes. It needs to be expanded beyond user and have to encompass of device attributes. What is the channel through which the user is getting onto the system, right? Device, whether it is managed or unmanaged. If it is unmanaged, what is the security, what posture for a particular device in terms of versions and whatnot. And the third important factor is, what are the various external environmental factors such as time of the day, geolocations, and whatnot. So if you're considering identity, it's a context-based identity. The subject is consisting of user, devices, and resources. So that's the first consideration. How do you expand your user context to device and environmental context. That's number one. Number two is how do you actually centralize the access decisions? Why I have the context, and I can basically orchestrate my policy-based access control to give the resources, the users to the access to the right resources. For me to make the decision making, I need a lot of data. Not just the data about users' devices or whatnot, but also the organizational risk posture. So the integration of the centralized identity engine with respect to SOC or SIEM is key in terms of enabling that particular portfolio. For example, Raj can log into this particular device, at this particular time. All those are good. But if there's a breach which has happened on that particular organization, I should be able to restrict Raj's access as well. I should be able to isolate the breached system. So for me to do that, the centralized access decision engine is so key in enabling that. And the last and the final thing, in my opinion, is for me to have the subject and as well as the centralized access decision to work, it's the data, underlying data, what we call as identity hygiene. We've been talking about it for long, right? And IGA plays a major role in it.
Right.
I know. I think you've talked a lot about IGA and the identity hygiene in the past. So
Yeah, we've both seen our fair share of organizations that don't have clean data, and if you don't have clean data, it's not coming from the right places. There's a whole lot that can go wrong and mess you up along the way.
And that's where tools like SailPoint play a key role as well, right, in helping organizations establish that identity hygiene. And I think this morning we heard about DAS as the tool as well and data structure. So taking the zero trust concept a little bit forward as well, right, beyond identity, I think with this capability, they're starting to help in other areas of zero trust as well. When you establish context on the data, you realize who has access to that and the risk profile of that data structure. It's helping you further your zero trust journey in certain ways, being able to make more intelligent decisions on the data side as well. So it's expanding identity and going into that data side. So I think that's a great innovation or
especially just to add on it. So how can you make sure that the human reliance is less on the data which is being attested, right? Whether you're talking about predictive identity, you're talking about risk-based AI-based processes that enables you to make some decisions based on, as an example, and in attestation, if you're talking about, hey, whether Raj has access to A and B, instead of that, it's not just whether he has access to A and B, but it also means that what is the time he has logged in? When was the last log on, as an example, right? That gives you additional insights for the approver or the reviewer to make some cognizant decision on what it is. So it's about the pristinity of how well you would be able to abstract the human intelligence or other human nature of approving everything, and then just involving AI and ML to enhance the data, even for attestation.
That's right. I mean, we've spoken about kind of the construct and what role identity plays in that, but I think as we have helped, and I'm sure, Kelly, you've seen that as well, there are some challenges on that zero trust journey as well, right?
Absolutely.
What are some of the common challenges, and what's your advice to organizations on that journey to be able to address some of those challenges?
I think one of the ones that we've seen quite a bit has been lack of or insufficient data, or just not having the right data from the CMDB. So if you don't know what you have in totality to secure, it's real hard to go start that journey. Having an incomplete CMDB without all of the information needed, very, very difficult.
Yeah, you got to know what you're protecting.
Right.
Otherwise, what are you going to do about it? Yeah?
Exactly. And one more to just add on to that list is, it's about whenever I have a conversation about zero trust, the first question is, hey, what should the technology that should enable it? Where is the on and off switch for that?
And there's not
Unfortunately, exactly. It's a journey, right? And so it's a framework, it's a set of design principles which you have to hone in on. So it's not just a specific technology, it's a combination of process and technology, and then upliftment of what you need to do based on your strategy when it comes to zero trust.
Right.
So I have a question. If I'm going to get budget to start a zero trust journey, where would I start? What would be the one thing that you would say, go do X?
Yeah, so I think I wouldn't start with just one, but I would say a couple of them. One is, to your previous point, we need to know what to protect, right? That's very important, right? Having a great perimeter and everything, and then you don't know what you're protecting is not no good. So data classification, data identification, what are your crown jewels is key. So any processes you have gaps in identifying those needs to be fixed first. The second thing is improve your overall hygiene, be it identity or even for that matter, the assert inventory, crown jewel identification, the whole of the identity automations, right? Making sure that you are actually removing the right access and right identity based on the termination events and et cetera, right? So those have to be considered. Those are the basic foundation. So just to summarize, if I wanted to put that in this one, start with the data classification especially, right? And then hone on to the identity elements, which is make sure that your hygiene is pristine.
I agree.
Yep.
Well, let's explore the identity aspect. We're at an identity conference, so expanding on that hygiene, right? I think one of the common misconceptions about Zero Trust, especially in the early days, I think it's a little bit better now, is you can buy a tool for Zero Trust, right? I can buy a tool, I'll implement it, the vendor promises it's Zero Trust, and I'm done, right? In the context of what you said with identity hygiene, right? We all know, SailPoint is a great tool, and a lot of large organizations are using it very well. But it's not just about the tool, right? And that's where, we help organizations. Kelly, you've been part of those things as well. It is a process element. It's about understanding your business, what are the different sources, making sure you have the right sources, the right integrations, but also the right process to cleanse it down to create that hygiene as well and maintain it in the long run. So anything you want to talk about in terms of that journey for clients as well?
It is really important, as you mentioned, right? Even if you talk about IGA is going to be the foundational aspect, as I was mentioning earlier, right? It's not just identity, but it's also the static data which you are going to be managing. So we started with ACLs, right? Access control list. Now it becomes role. Now it becomes policy. The more and more you are abstracting yourself out of the loop of entitlement-driven access control, the better you're going to be. Right, so then which is where I think the policy-based access control is a new phenomenon which is coming up as well, is really great because you are not actually leveraging an entitlement or a role for making the decisions, but you are using a policy. Right, based on various other factors. That's where I think I was talking about the centralizing access engine. So that should be policy-based access engine that enables you to orchestrate the dynamically runtime decisions.
Right.
Yeah.
And does cloud play a role in all of this? A lot of organizations are becoming cloud first, migrating to the cloud, or being native to cloud in a lot of ways. Are there different principles, or is the same principles applied differently? How do you see that play out? I'll ask you both, but maybe Raj, you want to start?
Yeah, there. I can take that. So from a cloud principle perspective, it's the principles are the same, the framework is the same. But where I think we can make it right is because when traditionally we started having these infrastructures and whatnot on-prem, we did not have this luxury of putting the security by design. Right. Now you have the framework, you have the principles. So from the get-go, whether it is cloud modernizations or cloud movement, moving your infrastructure to the cloud and whatnot, from the get-go you have to start looking at these principles and implementing them in the rationale of Zero Trust, right? So that's where I think it's important. But there is nothing specific for cloud as such when it comes to Zero Trust, right? So it is considered as one of the elements of how do you protect it.
Right.
Yeah.
So the technology might be different, but the principle, the mindset of assume breach, all of that remains the same.
Yes.
It's how you implement it down might look different, right? Different modules or different products kind of helping you protect those assets.
That is correct, yes.
Right. So I think that was all the questions. Wanted to thank you again. It's been hopefully insightful for the audience as well. And thank you for joining me today.
Absolutely, thanks for having us.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.